Dear listeners, today's story is a warm and emotional family tale that reminds us of one of the strongest forces in the world, a mother's love. It is a love that asks for nothing, endures everything, and quietly holds families together even in the hardest moments. Set around the joy and warmth of Christmas, this story takes us into the life of a young mother, her school-going children, and a simple family that may not be rich in money, but is deeply rich in values, trust, and togetherness. This story will help improve your English listening and speaking skills, and it will leave you feeling comforted, hopeful, and grateful for the love we often take for granted. The title of today's story is A Love That Never Runs Out. And now, let us begin. Chapter 1. A small home built on quiet love. On a narrow street just beyond the busy city roads, where traffic noise slowly faded into evening silence, stood a small house with pale blue walls and a slightly crooked front door. It wasn't the kind of house people noticed. No garden, no gate, no decorations that caught the eye. Yet inside, it carried something far more valuable than appearance, a steady, living warmth. This was the home of Emma. Emma was a young mother, just past 30, with gentle eyes that had learned both patience and worry. Her days began before sunrise and ended long after everyone else had fallen asleep. She was a homemaker, not because life limited her choices, but because love had quietly shaped them. Every morning, Emma woke to the sound of the old alarm clock beside her bed. The room was simple, a wooden cupboard with peeling paint, a small mirror with a crack in one corner, and folded clothes arranged neatly, as if order itself could bring peace. She moved softly so she wouldn't wake the children, wrapping her shawl tighter against the winter cold that slipped through the window. In the kitchen, she prepared breakfast with practiced hands, warm porridge, toasted bread, and tea brewed carefully to last the morning. She measured everything precisely, not just ingredients, but time, energy, and expenses. Nothing could be wasted. Her children soon followed. Lucas, 10 years old, stepped out first. He carried himself with a seriousness that didn't belong to his age. His school bag was heavy, but his thoughts were heavier. He often noticed things adults assumed children didn't see. Behind him came Lily, 7, full of light and movement. She wore mismatched socks, always forgot her hair clips, and smiled like the world hadn't yet taught her caution. December made her especially happy. She hummed Christmas tunes without realizing it, her voice filling the house with cheer. Emma watched them from the kitchen doorway, a soft smile on her face. In moments like these, her tiredness disappeared. Their father, Daniel, wasn't there. His shoes rested quietly near the door, untouched for weeks. Work in another city kept him away, chasing stability for the family. His absence wasn't a lack of love, but it still left empty spaces at the dinner table and unanswered questions in the children's eyes. As Christmas crept closer, small signs appeared everywhere. A faint string of lights blinked in a neighbor's window. The distant sound of carols floated in the cold evening air. Shop windows in the city glowed with decorations Emma could only admire from afar. That night after the children slept, Emma sat alone at the dining table. Bills lay neatly stacked in front of her. She counted silently, her fingers moving slowly, carefully. The numbers never added up the way she wished, but she didn't sigh, complain, or cry. Instead, she reached for a small notebook and began planning Christmas. Simple meals, handmade decorations, warm memories. She paused, listening to the sound of her children breathing in the next room. A quiet strength settled inside her chest. The house may have been small. Money may have been limited. But love filled every corner. And as Christmas lights flickered outside, Emma made a promise only a mother could make. No matter what, her children would feel safe, loved, and whole. Chapter 2. The Things Children Notice. Morning arrived quietly, wrapped in winter mist. The sun rose late, hesitant, as if it too felt the cold. Emma stood at the small kitchen stove, stirring porridge slowly while the kettle whistled in the background. She moved with care, aware of every sound, every movement, habits shaped by years of stretching little into enough. Lucas sat at the table, his school books spread neatly in front of him. He wasn't reading. His eyes were fixed on the notebook Emma had left behind the previous night. It was open to a page filled with numbers, crossed out and rewritten again and again. He didn't touch it. He didn't ask questions. But something settled heavily in his chest. Lily, on the other hand, danced around the room in her sweater, humming a Christmas song she had learned at school. She held a small paper star in her hand, carefully folded and decorated with glitter. "Mom, can we hang this?" she asked brightly. Emma smiled and took the star, hanging it near the window where the morning light caught the glitter. It wasn't much, but Lily clapped as if it were the most beautiful decoration in the world. On the walk to school, Lucas lagged behind. The cold air made his ears red and his thoughts louder than his footsteps. He watched other children talk excitedly about gifts, trees, and holiday trips. He said nothing. That evening, after homework and dinner, Lucas sat beside Emma on the old sofa. The television played softly, but neither of them was watching. "Mom," he asked quietly. "Yes, sweetheart. Are we okay?" Emma turned to him, surprised, not by the question but by how carefully he asked it. "We are," she said softly. Lucas nodded, then added, "I don't need presents. I just want us together on Christmas." Emma pulled him into her arms, her heart tightening. She rested her chin on his head, breathing in the familiar smell of soap and winter air. "Always," she whispered. Later that night, Emma stood alone by the window. Christmas lights blinked across the street, steady and bright. She pressed her hand against the glass, feeling the cold seep into her palm. Children notice more than we think, she realized. And a mother carries not only her own worries, but theirs too. As she turned off the lights and walked back to bed, Emma promised herself once again. Her children would never feel poor in love. Chapter 3. Distance that slowly grows. The nights grew colder as December moved forward, and with the cold came silence. Long, heavy silence that filled the spaces between words. Daniel's calls had become less frequent. When the phone rang, Emma felt a small pause in her heart before answering. She always made sure the children were nearby but busy, homework, coloring, brushing their teeth, so they wouldn't hear the tension that sometimes slipped into adult conversations. "How was work today?" she asked gently. "Every time." "Long," Daniel replied, often distracted, his voice tired. "Things are complicated." Emma understood complicated. She lived it daily. But what hurt was not the struggle, it was the growing distance, the way their conversations no longer ended with laughter, only silence. One evening, Daniel mentioned money. "I don't think we can manage Christmas this year," he said flatly. "We need to be practical." Emma closed her eyes for a moment. "It doesn't have to be expensive," she replied calmly. "The kids just need us." Daniel sighed. "You don't see the pressure I'm under." The call ended without goodbye. Emma sat still, phone resting in her lap, listening to the quiet hum of the room. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. Instead, she stood up, folded the laundry, and helped Lily with her spelling words, as if strength were simply another household chore. Later that night, Lucas pretended to sleep while listening to his parents' voices from the other room. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Children always do. At school the next day, Lucas drew a picture instead of paying attention in class. It showed 4 stick figures holding hands under a Christmas tree. One figure was drawn farther away than the others. At home, Emma placed the drawing on the refrigerator without comment, but she stood there for a long time, staring at it. Distance doesn't arrive suddenly, she thought. It grows quietly, when love is tired and patience is stretched thin. That night, Emma knelt beside the children's bed, brushing Lily's hair away from her face and adjusting Lucas's blanket. "No matter what," she whispered, though they were asleep, "we stay together." Outside, Christmas lights flickered uncertainly in the wind, just like the family she was holding together with quiet, unseen strength. Chapter 4. Making Room for Christmas. The week before Christmas arrived softly, without announcement. The days were shorter, the evenings longer, and the cold more determined. Emma felt it in her hands as she washed dishes in lukewarm water, and in her shoulders as she folded laundry late into the night. Still, she decided, Christmas would come to their home, no matter how quietly. One afternoon, she brought out an old cardboard box from under the bed. Inside were memories carefully wrapped in newspaper, handmade ornaments, faded ribbons, and a small string of lights that worked only if positioned just right. Lily clapped her hands in excitement. "It's Christmas time," she declared. Lucas smiled, but stayed quiet, watching his mother closely. They didn't have a Christmas tree. Instead, Emma took a thin branch from a nearby park, cleaned it carefully, and placed it in a glass bottle near the window. Together, they decorated it with paper stars, old bells, and tiny drawings. Each decoration held a story. Emma let the children lead, stepping back and letting laughter fill the room. For a moment, the weight of everything lifted. That evening, Emma sat at the small table, needle and thread in hand, repairing old sweaters. She turned them into something warmer, something new. Every stitch was careful. Every movement carried intention. Lucas watched her. "Mom," he said slowly, "you always make things better." Emma paused, her fingers resting on the fabric. "We do," she corrected gently, "together." On Christmas Eve, the house smelled of simple food, soup, warm bread, and spices that reminded Emma of easier times. Music played softly from an old radio, crackling between stations. The children sang along, their voices unpolished but joyful. When night fell, Emma lit the small string of lights. They flickered unevenly, but they shone. Lily pressed her face against the window. "It looks like hope," she whispered. Emma swallowed hard. Yes, she thought, it does. That night, after the children slept, Emma sat alone beneath the lights. She folded her hands, not to ask for wealth or miracles, but for togetherness. Because sometimes, love isn't loud. Sometimes, it simply shows up. Chapter 5, The Road That Led Him Home. Christmas Eve night settled quietly over the city. Streets glowed with soft lights, shop windows reflected passing faces, and the air carried a strange mix of celebration and longing. At a crowded bus station miles away, Daniel stood alone. He watched families hurry past him, parents holding children's hands, couples sharing warm smiles, laughter echoing under bright decorations. Each sight stirred something heavy in his chest. His phone buzzed. A picture. It was from Emma. The children stood beside their small Christmas branch, paper stars hanging unevenly. Lily was smiling brightly. Lucas stood close to his sister, protective and calm. No words, just the picture. Daniel sat down slowly on a cold metal bench. For weeks, he had told himself that distance was necessary, that sacrifice meant absence. But in that moment, surrounded by strangers and noise, he felt what he had been avoiding all along. He was missing Christmas. He was missing home. He remembered Emma's quiet strength, how she never complained, never demanded, never made him feel small even when life was hard. He remembered the way she held the family together without ever asking for recognition. And suddenly, work felt less important than warmth. Without overthinking, Daniel bought a ticket. The bus ride was long and uncomfortable. The windows rattled, the road uneven, but with every mile his heart felt lighter. Just as church bells rang in the distance, the bus pulled into the familiar neighborhood. Emma had just finished cleaning the kitchen when there was a knock at the door. She froze. No one ever came that late. When she opened it, the cold rushed in, along with a familiar face. "Emma," Daniel said softly, "I came home." For a moment, time stopped. Then Lily appeared behind her, eyes wide. "Daddy." Lucas stepped forward, silent but steady. Emma said nothing. She simply stepped aside and let him in. And just like that, Christmas changed everything. Chapter 6, where words finally find their way. The house felt different with Daniel. inside it again. Not louder, not brighter, just fuller. The children sat close to him on the sofa, unsure whether to speak or simply exist in the moment. Lily held his hand tightly, afraid he might disappear if she let go. Lucas watched carefully, his young mind weighing emotions he was still learning to name. Emma stood near the doorway, arms folded, not in anger, but in restraint. She had carried so much alone that setting it down felt unfamiliar. That night, after the children fell asleep, Emma and Daniel sat across from each other at the small dining table. The Christmas lights flickered softly above them, casting gentle shadows on the walls. "I should have been here," Daniel said quietly. Emma nodded. Yes. No accusations, no raised voices, just truth. "I thought providing meant leaving," he continued. "I didn't realize how much I was losing." Emma finally spoke, her voice calm but steady. "We needed you, not your money, you." Silence followed, not heavy but healing. They talked until the night grew old. About fear, about pressure, about how love sometimes bends under weight but doesn't break if both hands hold it. Daniel reached for Emma's hand. She didn't pull away. Trust didn't return all at once, but it returned honestly. The next morning, Christmas Day, the children woke to the sound of laughter, soft, unfamiliar laughter that felt like sunlight. They sat together for breakfast, simple food shared slowly. No rush, no tension. Just family. And in that quiet morning, something fragile but beautiful was rebuilt. Chapter 7, A Love That Grows and Stays. Life did not change overnight. The house was still small. Money was still limited. Worries still existed. But something far more important had returned: togetherness. Daniel stayed. He found work closer to home, work that paid less but allowed him to return every evening. Emma returned to her routines, but now her shoulders felt lighter. The quiet strength she carried was finally shared. Lucas began to smile more freely. He no longer watched the world with the caution of someone waiting for things to fall apart. Lily laughed louder, decorating the house year-round with handmade art and hope. Every Christmas after that, the family repeated the same simple traditions: paper stars, warm meals, music playing softly in the background. They never pretended to be rich. Instead, they taught their children something far greater: that love, honesty, and trust are the true measures of wealth. Years later, Lucas would remember that Christmas as the moment he learned what strength truly looked like. Not loud, not proud, but patient, steady, and deeply kind. And Lily would remember her mother's smile beneath flickering lights, the smile that held the family together when everything else felt uncertain. Because a mother's love is unique. It doesn't fight with force. It fights with faith. And when it does, families don't just survive. They grow, unite, and prosper. Thank you for listening to this story. We hope it filled your heart with warmth and reminded you of the quiet power of a mother's love. If this story touched you, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing meaningful stories that inspire, comfort, and connect. Stay with us to listen to a new story every day. Stories about love, hope, and real-life lessons. Until next time, cherish your family, believe in love, and remember: the greatest strength in the world often lives in a mother's heart.